This is Michael Popak. It's After Dark. Do you know where your legal AF is? You know what else operates in the dark? Russian trolls that operate under the control of Putin and the Russian intelligence, and they are working overtime to try to defeat Kamala Harris to benefit their candidate of choice, Donald Trump. It's gone so far now that a piece of propaganda created out of a deep fake showing Kamala Harris, or an actress paid to look like Kamala Harris, participated in a hit and run 10 years ago, 20 years ago, leaving somebody paralyzed, all fake news, has made its way around MAGA. More than 3 million times it's circled the earth, because we know who the Russians want to win the election, and that person's name is not Kamala Harris. We talk about it at length on the most recent edition of Legal AF, joined by a crossover episode on our sister channel, True Crime MTN, Dave Aronberg, Florida lawman. Take a listen. We've got Dave Aronberg of our sister network, which is True Crime MTN. He's the current Palm Beach County state attorney, and he's also known on the network. Let's bring him in before I do my little trick. Here he is, Florida lawman. Perfect. We only practiced that once. That's great. Dave, I did something over on on your network, and you and I went back and forth, and I said, let's get you over here. I know you're friendly with Karen and with Danya and with the others. I think it would be a great opportunity for people to know more about Dave Aronberg. I know you just had some great life events, got married on a honeymoon, but now you're back rolling up your shirt sleeves, ready to roll out November all the way to election. And I thought it would be a nice idea on this particular topic. Let's talk about real Russia collusion. We already have, the former FBI assistant director under Donald Trump, Assistant Director McCabe, say recently that he's convinced that Donald Trump is an asset of the Russian government, that he's been turned by the Russians, and that he is an asset. I mean, that's remarkable to hear somebody say that. At the same time, Donald Trump keeps playing the old broken record. I didn't collude with the Russians. Even if that were particularly true, and Robert Mueller wasn't able to directly connect the dots, Donald Trump certainly tried to use and tried to benefit from Russia trying to get Republicans, particularly him, elected, and trying to use that as his own campaign, right? Trying to use the fruit of that poisonous tree. He did it against Hillary Clinton. And now we've got two major events in the last week and a half. We've got the Department of Justice. We'll start with that one. We've got a Russian troll farm who hires paid actors to portray in grainy videos Kamala Harris in allegedly a hit and run where she left, according to this fraudulent, false, made-up deep fake, and not even a deep fake, a shallow fake, where she hit a 13-year-old girl, leaving her paralyzed. You know why you never heard of that story? Because it's completely untrue, and it's made up by Russian trolls. They then placed it in the hands of another Russian troll who's on X as Aussie Comrade. I mean, shouldn't this be a tip-off? Where he took the fake video of a fake TV station in San Francisco and then said, MAGA, have at it. And 3 million views later, people, if you meet them on the street and they're MAGA or right wing, they'll say, I think she was involved in a hit and run accident. Let's talk about that. All fake. And then we've got the information that we've reported on your channel, on this channel, of Tenet Media in Tennessee, which is the home of alt-right podcasters who have millions and millions of viewers, who was captured effectively by RT, Russia TV. It's hard to believe we allow that to operate here, who gave them $10 million to line the pockets of podcasters to then take positions that were against America and in favor of Russia to American audiences. It's hard to believe. And then we have an indictment that came out of that. Let me turn it over to the two prosecutors. You got Karen Freeman McNiffalo, formerly number 2 in the Manhattan DA's office, and you got the current Palm Beach County state attorney, the highest prosecutor in that particular county. Dave, why don't we bring you in? Why don't you kick it off with what did you pick up? Let's start. Why don't you do the indictment of the two Russian television employees by the Department of Justice, and then Karen, why don't you pick up with the Kamala Harris hit and run story?
Yeah, well, Popak, great to be here with you and Karen. It's my first time on Legal AF. You said I can come on if I bought 100 cases of Super Beets. So now I'm going to be eating borscht for every meal for the next couple of months. But hey, it's good for you. Speaking of borscht, let's talk about the Russians, huh? So they.
That was a good segue, Dave.
You like that?
Smooth.
That's the kind of stuff we do on True Crime MTN. Smooth segues. So I want to read you something because when Trump says that the whole Russia thing is a Russia hoax, and we're seeing it in real time with our own eyes, that it's far from a hoax. But you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe us here at the Midas Touch Network. Why don't you listen to Marco Rubio? Yeah, that Marco Rubio. He was the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee back in 2016. He's a big Trump supporter, and Trump considered him on the short list to be vice president. Well, they did an investigation on Russian interference, and the Republican-led committee, chaired by Rubio, found that Russia posed a, quote, grave counterintelligence threat. And this is what Rubio said in a statement with the report. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. So much for a hoax, right? Unless Rubio was part of Antifa, then I would say he's still MAGA and he was telling the truth back then. And it's truthful right now because what we're seeing is a concerted effort by the Russians, by Vladimir Putin, to help Donald Trump through the troll farms. You mentioned it. And by the way, one of the main perpetrators of the troll farm, the main guy who's doing this, is a former Palm Beach County deputy sheriff, a cop here in Palm Beach County who was about to be picked up on felony warrants, and he fled the country to Russia, where he got political asylum from Vladimir Putin, and he's the one putting out this stuff, these fake memes and the stories, news stories. And as far as Tenet, so Tenet is this company in Nashville who the Russians invested in, put money in, and used them and their podcasters as useful idiots. There's a question of whether they were in cahoots with the Russians as Russian agents or useful idiots. Now, the indictments do not say that they were in cahoots with the Russians, but they were used by the Russians. All this money came their way, and they didn't ask questions. Where is all this money coming from to put out stuff that Vladimir Putin would love to put out? In fact, at the station, at this Tenet company, they were asked to put out this stuff from Tucker Carlson about how great Russian grocery stores are. And for them, they were like, well, that does seem a little bit too much. That seems like overt propaganda. Let's continue to do all the other stuff. We don't want to hit our viewers over the head too much with Russian propaganda. So they knew they were on the side of Vladimir Putin. People like Tim Pool, who was getting paid like six figures on his podcast, and I would love that kind of gig. They claim they're victims in all this. I would like to be a victim getting paid six figures for putting out podcasts, but okay. So he's putting out stuff saying that the biggest threat to the United States is Ukraine. That's Vladimir Putin talking points. And so, that's something that'll be a stain on him and his fellow colleagues forever, because at the very least, they were used by the Russians to push their disinformation in a way to help Donald Trump.
Yeah, on the one of the stories that these useful idiots allowed themselves to be used for, and I'm not buying that, was a position that the Russians wanted them to take, and they willingly took. It's amazing what $10 million, how far that will go, in which they were going to argue that the United States and Ukraine was responsible for the mass shooting at a music festival in Moscow. And these guys said, yeah, well, we'll run that story. I mean, talk about anti-America. And then they sat there clutching their pearls after the indictment came out. Oh, you can see the indictment. We were victims too. $10 million victims.
Right.
And RT is very, very in cheeky fashion. It's almost like evil genius. I almost had to laugh out loud when I read it. Reuters reached RT and they said there's three things that you can believe in: death, taxes, and Russian interference in an election. That was RT TV in a quote. That's just playing with us now. Now they're just toying with us.
And when it came to that music festival where there was a terrorist attack, ISIS claimed responsibility. It was ISIS, but that's not good enough for these guys in right-wing media who adopted the Vladimir Putin line against all evidence that it was the United States working with Ukraine on this. I mean, that's really bad because that's a sellout of our own country. Now, I know you're skeptical that perhaps they're not useful idiots. They were Russian agents. I only go by the indictment, which did not indict these guys, but you have every right to be skeptical based on their over-the-top positions that they took, which was clearly against American interests and for Russia. So at some point, you got to ask questions like, hey, who am I serving here? Am I dedicated to the truth, or am I dedicated to that bald guy who rides the horse topless in Moscow?
Well, there's that, but there's also, we all do podcasts, right? What do? We don't just take topics that people give us. We do our own research. We do our own investigation. I try to read the briefs myself that the lawyers are saying, or the decisions myself. I don't just read, what the news reports are on things, when I can. And so it just makes you wonder that what are they doing to even kind of do any basic level of investigation into whether or not something's the truth. And that's the whole MAGA playbook, right? Is they lie. And there's two things that Donald Trump, I think you can count on in addition to death and taxes and Russian troll farms. One is that he's going to lie, just flat out lie, provable lies. There's about sizes of crowds or whether a judge is going to let him go to his son's graduation or whatever it is, things that you can actually read the record and see that they're actual flat out lies. And then just like the deflection, right? The way and delays. It wants to delay all his court cases. That's the other thing you can set your clock to, is he's going to try to delay things. But, just deflection. It's like, everybody's now, the whole MAGA right wing is just aghast that, as you said, clutching at their pearls at the Democrats, saying that they're the ones causing the rhetoric is causing the assassinations, when actually the evidence is that their rhetoric is causing the people to go out and become more violent and to become dangerous, right? Donald Trump is the one who posts things like a baseball bat, to the DA Bragg's head. He's the one with the crazy violent rhetoric that makes people lose their mind. So, they just lie. And the fact that they've got these, whether you want to call them useful idiots or co-conspirators, frankly, who either are intentionally looking the other way or just not doing basic level of research and work. I just think people should know that who you can trust and who you can't trust. I have a question. You use the word Russian troll farm. For those of us who don't know what a troll farm is or a Russian troll farm, can one of you explain that? Because I don't know that it's a word or it's a phrase that is thrown around and talked about, but I don't know that everyone knows what that is.
Dave, you want to do Russian or you want to do troll farm?
Sure. Yeah, there was the building that was paid for by the Russians that they would have individuals, and all they did was spew out lies and conspiracy theories on the internet to try to undermine our democracy. And usually they were supportive of Donald Trump, but they could also do things to try to get people in the streets regarding Black Lives Matter. And they were putting out false stuff to try to get us to fight with each other and to hate each other. And it's part of what's called troll farm. It's like a little business that they do, paid for by the Russians, housed in some secretive building, nondescript building, who knows where it is, Siberia or something. And that's what it is. Now, the guy from the United States, from Palm Beach County, who's over there, is like the head of the troll farm because he has a command of the English language. Sometimes you can tell these trolls because they say things like, you bad, no like potato. You're like, what? So, that doesn't work. But when you have an American who's over there putting out a fake news story about Kamala Harris and a hit and run, that's the kind of thing that sells. And that's one reason why you get political asylum. Just that story that we're referring to about the hit and run, there were some signs that it was a fraud right away. It contained, this is a website that they put up there called KBSF TV, a TV station in San Francisco that didn't exist. So anyone in San Francisco realized, that doesn't exist. And they showed X-ray images of from the alleged accident, all the bones that were broken, but it was stock images taken from an online medical journal, and they use plagiarized articles on this fake website from real news outlets. So it was just totally bogus. But
and a paid actress. There's a fake paid actress claiming to be this victim. I mean, they really went. This is more than just a let's put some in, like sit behind a keyboard. I mean, this is some pretty sophisticated, in my opinion, sophisticated attempts to put out false information about Kamala Harris, about and trying to, as you said, destabilize our country. In addition to that, but this guy, this ex-cop or whatever he was, sheriff, ex-cop from Palm Beach County, was he known to you? I mean, was he someone that your office prosecuted? What can you tell us about him?
Yes, yeah, I did know him, and he was going to be prosecuted. He was a cop, and he was fired by PBSO, and so he was at odds with the sheriff, and there were alleged criminal activities going on, and so he was about to be picked up on warrants, and so he fled the country. He left his family behind here, and he fled the country, and he's been in Russia ever since, and he's been putting out this kind of stuff. So there was an article in the New York Times, I believe, that profiled him about it, and it's just amazing that you go from a cop to being the number one purveyor of misinformation in a Russian troll farm. So yeah, that's where it comes from. A lot of this stuff, and you're right. This is an actress that they used, but what's interesting is what Popok said early on. This is not an AI deepfake. This is not fake voices. This is old school, low technology videos, because I guess they thought that the AI stuff was either too expensive or didn't come out right. Where now you're like, hey, this is a real video of a real person, just an actress, and it gets millions of views.
Yeah, and this guy, this sheriff is not the same as Aussie Comrade, right? That's somebody else. Because the Aussie Comrade is the one that started. He said, MAGA, run with this. And they did. And they got 3 million views about Kamala Harris. But isn't it, let's make this point. When the Russians try to interfere, it's always on behalf of Donald Trump. J.D. Vance said recently in a very inartful way and probably borderline calling for violence against Kamala Harris. He said, the big difference is I use the same voice for anybody. What the big difference is between the two parties? The Democratic candidates haven't been shot at. Okay, I can think of many other big differences. And one of them is every time there's Russian interference, it's always on behalf of Donald Trump. They want Donald Trump to win because, back to what we said earlier, he's perceived to be the equivalent of a Russian asset that they can flatter their way to try to turn him against American interests. Just today, and I did a hot take on this, one of my law partners participated in 100 national security Republican leaders from various Republican administrations, including Trump's own administration, joined together today, much like Judge Luttig did a month or so ago. I think he gave the permission slip for others to do this. They signed a letter today, 100 of them, who said that Donald Trump is a danger to our republic, and he cannot be trusted to uphold his oath of office. And they, supporting their oath of office, have said they have no other choice but to endorse Kamala Harris because Donald Trump will compromise American foreign policy and our security interests. That's 100 admirals, secretaries, deputy secretaries, lawyers, all working within the national intelligence community. And there's a reason for that. The Russians want to put Americans at each other's throat. They want a weak America, and they see Donald Trump as the primary person who can divide this country, weaken us from within. And that's what the Russians' goal has always been. We're all about the same vintage, give or take a decade or so. Did you ever think we'd be talking about a former president and a wannabe president who has curried favor and snuggled up? That's a legal term with the Russians. The Russians. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that anybody. I said to somebody recently on our network, I don't know how Kamala Harris doesn't get 95% of the vote. I don't know how anybody could vote for this person. And I don't care about this argument. It's the messenger. It's not. I don't like the messenger, but I like the message. I don't like the guy, but I like the policy. Forget it. You're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. If you want to vote for Donald Trump, go ahead. That is your God-given right as an American. If that's what you want to do and throw away your vote that way and be on the wrong side of history and the arc of history, that's fine. But you need to do it without burying your head willfully in the sand. Don't be a useful idiot. To paraphrase our co-anchor for today, Dave Aronberg, You have to recognize that you are the vessel for all your hopes and dreams as a president is corrupt, is morally bankrupt, is hollowed out, is gassed. That's what you're watching, and it's likely a Russian agent, a Russian asset, and we're watching it all. Karen, how about on the deep fake? Anything else we want to comment on that?
Just how shocking it is that that one just really surprised me in a really big way, that they would go to those lengths to really create this, to pay an actor and to create this huge deep fake. I mean, you call it a deep shallow. I think it's a deep shallow fake. Yeah, because I get it, because it's not very good. So it's not, in that way, it's not a deep fake, but Jesus, just how dangerous that is, that they're creating these things out there that, that eventually, the problem again with Donald Trump is he repeats things over and over and over and over again, and people start to believe it, like this eating dogs and cats thing, or people's like, well, there must be some truth to it. And, it's just unbelievable to me to show what they're doing.
Dave I'm sure Dave will agree with me. I lived in Miami and South Florida for 20 years. The poor downtrodden Haitian, a very proud community. They're pillars of the community in South Florida. I count many Haitian Americans as my friends. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District is a Haitian American at present. I don't know if you do, Dave, but I go to the Haitian Bar Association Gala every year. My law partners were in that community, and to see them and all the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio were doing in an underground railroad move, often spearheaded by the established community in Miami, was to connect downtrodden people that needed a help and a hand up with jobs that were necessary to be filled in a community that was racked by COVID and needed workers for their manufacturing community. Springfield, Ohio put out a welcome mat for the Haitian community. That's why 15,000 showed up. They're not criminals. They're not eating dogs and pets, but they are making products that you and I and the rest of America are using as part of the economy. The alternative for Donald Trump would have been shuttering all of the manufacturing plants in Springfield, Ohio for lack of workers. I mean, only Donald Trump can turn a good feel-good story about taking hardworking Haitians who are here legally under temporary protective status, a form of asylum until they get their permanent status, and turn that into some sort of eating cats and dogs that he brings up within 26 minutes of the first debate. It's just the first and only debate. It's just absolutely crazy to me. Dave, listen. You have an open carte blanche invitation to join us anytime, and we'll do more crossover episodes like this. If you like Dave Aronberg, and you should, you should go follow him on a curated channel. That's a sister or companion channel on the Midas Touch Network called True Crime MTN with Dave Aronberg and some other contributors. And Dave, where do they find that over on YouTube? How do they find that?
Yeah, and thank you for the nice plug, Michael. And Karen, thanks for having me. You can find us at YouTube at True Crime MTN. It's just like it sounds. And we cover all these high-profile true crime cases that aren't covered on the main Midas Touch Network. We're covering the Donna Adelson trial that just got postponed, Diddy, all these true crime cases that are in the news. That we have the same types of takes and hot takes and perspectives that you see and used to on the regular MTN. So check us out over there. And thanks for your support. Appreciate all you guys. This was a lot of fun. I hope you'll have me back.
Oh, 1,000%. Dave, really great.
Thanks so much, Dave, for coming on the show. We really, really appreciate it. And before we let you go, just because everyone in my world is somehow connected, that Dave went to college with Danya Perry. So I thought, right?
We lived in the same dorm freshman year. So Danya and I have known each other since we were 18 years old. She's doing very well for herself. And it's so funny that we all, found each other back here in the MTN family.
Right? Oh, yeah. Isn't that crazy? It's just such a small world.
Great community. Dave, thanks for being here. We'll see you soon. And we'll see you on your next hot take and analysis on True Crime MTN. Welcome back. That was fun. We got to have Dave on the show with us. We do that show Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on the Midas Touch Network. We call it Legal AF. And we named it that 4 years ago for a reason. And now you know why. 8 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch us live record on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And then you can pick us up on all audio podcast platforms of your choice. If you know all about Legal AF, we really appreciate you. We got some great news. Midas Touch and Legal AF have just launched a new Legal AF YouTube channel that you can free subscribe to and help us build that network that channel from the ground up. I'll be curating the channel, Michael Popak, bringing you at the intersection of law and politics all of the commentary and analysis you've come to expect here on the Midas Touch Network. Go to YouTube at Legal AFMTN, and free subscribe now. After 2 days, we're already at 30,000 subscribers. Come join us. We're trying to get to 100,000 before Halloween. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, until my next exclusive content on the new Legal AF YouTube channel, this is Michael Popak signing off. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.